Any plans on simplifying the late game factories? Late game feels more like work than enjoying. I think so. I think, well, it depends. Because if we change up how we've done that before, where we changed how recipes are unlocked. So like, complexity is like part of 7 and 8 or 8, I think. And we might want to change that a little bit and make it easier. I think the like space elevator phase 4 is placeholder at the moment, and it's very difficult. So that might change, but we might also change like other aspects of the game where the complexity will make sense or something like that. So we'll see what happens essentially, but it's like late game isn't done. I think we're somewhat happy with early game. There are a few tweaks in here. There's a couple of retention issues that we also want to solve with early game. So which we're still thinking about and looking into, but we'll get to that later. And late game is something that we don't feel like we've nailed fully. I think we're pretty happy with like mid tier, like early mid. But we'll sort of see. I think we were pretty happy with the changes we made for update 4 though, with the how complexity is introduced. So complexity is introduced in tier 6 or 7, 6 I think, where you're taught about the complexity lines, but they're not complex in terms of build wise. But then in 7 and 8 it becomes a hornet's nest. So based on feedback, we'll make adjustments to that. So if a lot of people feel like late game is too grindy or whatever, then of course we'll take that to heart and make changes to make it make sense. Recipes will change probably. So yeah. The complexity behind nuclear power was a headache to work around, but after the fact, I'm barely scratching 10% usage. Yeah, it might. It goes into the discussion of retention as well, where sometimes I think people feel like they have to do more complex solutions than they do. And I think a lot of people, when they get to nuclear, they always think like, oh, I'm gonna make this massive fucking nuclear power plant power. I'm never gonna need to make nuclear again. And it's like, I don't think that was the intent originally. I think that was more like for every player to feel that way. I think the intent was maybe like the top tier players that spend so much time on the game that it doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna name any names, but there's a couple of people in chat here that definitely should feel like I'm talking about them. But yeah, but that is all valuable feedback, I think, in the sense that, if people feel that retention wise they get burned out on the game, at that point maybe that's a sign that we need to look into these things and change the recipes to make sense, so that we can retain that but also still keep like the complexity for those people that do want to spend an insufferable amount of hours in the game. So yeah, that emote was made for this moment, okay? Like the emote Kibbs just posted was made for that moment, that call out. Holy shit. Difficulty toggle. Not a difficulty toggle, I would say. I think more like in terms of, because we've talked about this before, right? We're interested in looking into game modes and ways to change up the game and make it more customized in a sense or something like that. I don't know. We have a couple of ideas, but we haven't really committed to anything at this point, I think. So that's sort of one thing. Because one thing that we're gonna look into next sort of is retention in general for the entire player base. Yeah. Long story short, good times. Squished Kibbs.